Hey, before we get into this week's video, a little update for you. I don't generally post things about my personal life here on YouTube, but I feel like as a subscriber and as a customer, you deserve a little bit of explanation for my absence recently and for this new look I got going on here. I have been in the hospital for a month at Emory being treated for leukemia. No one wants to hear they have leukemia. It wasn't news I wanted to hear, but it is the hand I was dealt, and I have to work with it. But I'm full of hope. I am very hopeful that I'll make a full recovery. I've got a great team of doctors. They're very encouraged that I'll make a full recovery and get into remission. I've responded really well to the first round of chemo, but I've got a long road ahead of me. So as far as the YouTube channel here goes, I'm not going anywhere. I have really enjoyed contributing to the welding community over the years. I feel like I have more left in me. I feel like I have more to give. So that's my intention, is to continue to add value to the welding community. But it might look a little bit different. I don't know what changes are in order for this YouTube channel. You might see some podcast type format videos sprinkled in here where I interview people that are at the top of their game, interview some people, some familiar faces you've probably seen me work with already, some people that are doing some super interesting stuff. I've got a ton of content that I've shot already that I'm working on, so you'll see regular welding videos a lot too. When you get news like this, you got to do some deep thinking, and changes are in order. So for me, I've got to figure out what that is. I've got to figure out what the highest and best use of my time and energy is. The channel and the store, we're not going anywhere, but there might be some changes that you see going forward. If you feel compelled to support me in some way, the best way you can do that is just shop at the Weldmonger store. That's how I've always supported these videos. And of course, pray for me. Okay, that said, let's get into the video. If you're learning to weld, whether at home or if you're a welding student in school, padding beads is some of the best practice you can get in establishing a uniform bead. Doesn't matter what process, stick, MIG, TIG, flux core, doesn't matter. In this video, we're going to do a whole lot of padding beads, starting off with 7018, but we'll also do some 6013 and 6010. We'll also do some padding beads with some short circuit MIG welding. We'll do a little bit of self-shielded flux core too. And we'll talk about the importance of using the right polarity and the right stick-out length on self-shielded flux core while we're at it. We're also going to pad beads on some carbon steel, TIG welding, and also do some aluminum, and then talk about that and the benefits of alternating between aluminum and steel while you're learning to weld. Okay, so that's the preview. Let's jump in now to 7018 padding beads in the horizontal position. The goal with padding beads is to be able to run a uniform bead, but also to be able to stack beads uniformly. And what you want to try to do is stack each bead halfway over the previous bead evenly, so that there are no deep valleys or no big overlap where you overlap too much. Padding beads is something that you don't want to just go into without any thought at all. You want to do it with a lot of intention. You want to think about each bead and how to make each bead better. You can just drag a 7018 without any oscillation at all. Sometimes it helps to use just a tiny bit of oscillation to play the light, to see where you're going, and to flatten that bead out. Again, you don't have to oscillate. You need to be able to do both. You need to be able to just drag it as well as use a slight oscillation. But I have found that this helps me see where I'm going. It slows the process down just a little bit, helps that bead flatten out, keeps me on track. Just one way to do it, just one suggestion. You want to get the most out of your material, so you want to pad beads all the way from one end to another, and that's going to give you some practice welding all the way up to an edge without chewing it off. So it's just excellent practice from start to finish in keeping your beads straight and paying attention to how much you overlap, and it's very efficient because it uses very little material. You can also keep things interesting. You don't have to just run straight beads. I did this video years ago where I padded beads making a heart shaped, and what I learned was that made me really think about how to chuck the rod up in the stinger to maintain the right angle as I went. I was going left to right, right to left, all kind of different angles, and it was fun. It was really good practice, and it was a fun exercise, and it kept me interested, and it was a fun little project. So you can use your imagination. You could make diamond shapes or little rectangles and stack beads, whatever it takes to keep your head in the game. A really good practice exercise is welding vertical uphill padding beads with 7018. A lot of students struggle when they transition from flat and horizontal to vertical uphill when they're using a 7018. And padding beads like this on a flat piece of metal teaches you a lot. Gives you a lot of opportunity to check out different amperages, to test out the hot start, test out the arc control, test out different rod angles and different arc lengths. In this little clip, we just welded a few beads just to kind of show you, but you would want to get the full use of that plate and fill it completely with beads. I have never been crazy about 6013 rods. I used them in school, and then I never really had to use them after that in my career. But a lot of schools use them because they're easy to restart, and they do kind of train your eye to distinguish what's puddle and what's slag, because it is kind of a slaggy puddle. To me, it's not nearly as a distinct puddle. It's not nearly as easy to tell puddle from slag as, say, a 7018 is. But a lot of schools use these rods to start students off with, so I'm including this here, padding beads with 6013. Here we've got 3 beads down already. And again, what we're going to try to show is, what you want to do is center the rod up on the toe of the weld. The toe of the weld is the edge of the weld. And you want to overlap by halfway, and that means if you center up on the toe of the weld, your puddle should fan out and just go just about halfway over the previous bead. That is the goal. And it looks something like that. While you're padding beads, this is a great opportunity to practice your restarts. So, you want to stop and start often, chip slag, and practice your restarts. Here's a good arc shot showing centering up on the toe of that weld, trying to overlap the previous bead by exactly half. Let's look at a restart technique. You want to light up just ahead of the crater, long arc a little bit, go right into the crater, and carry on. This all happens very quickly, so I'm going to show this in slow motion here in just a second. Okay, I'm going to show this in slow motion in 1/4 speed, lighting up about a ½ inch or so ahead of the crater, aiming for the center of that crater, letting that crater fill, and then carrying on. Again, this happens so quickly, and it just really warrants a lot of practice. So if you want to get good at restarts, weld about 2 inches at a time, chip slag, and restart, and you'll get good at restarts. Being able to make a good restart on any process is super important. All right, let's take a look at some other processes and some other shapes. You don't need to limit yourself to just flat bar for padding beads. All you can get your hands on is round stock or hex or square stock. Almost any scrap piece can be used for padding beads. Here I'm just using a piece of 2-inch scrap stainless steel that I got for free from a machine shop that was going out of business. And I'm just padding beads, making one of those logs that you see on a stand with an axe buried in it. This is padding beads, and it is great practice. I'm trying to stack one bead exactly halfway over the previous bead. I'm trying to pay attention to my arc length and my torch angle. I'm trying to keep the hot tip of that rod shielded. And even for someone that's welded a lot, this was a fun little project. Another thing that padding beads is great for is getting familiar with a finger control, a torch-mounted amperage control on a TIG torch. They feel awkward when you first start using them. I like a foot pedal personally, but there are times when a finger control is worth its weight in gold. But they feel awkward to start with, and they're all a little bit different, and they all take a little bit getting used to. This one's hooked up to a CK Flex Lock 360. This is a CK slide control. It's fairly smooth, but it's going to take me a little getting used to. I'm not used to it. So I figured out how I could best hold it, and that generally meant using my middle finger there, kind of hooked in the groove on that thing. And I just set in and run beads, and then eventually it felt really, really good to me. Now here's a pro tip. Whenever you use any finger control, set the machine higher than you normally would so that all it takes is one finger stroke to get your amperage. You don't want to have to be pushing and backing up and pushing again. You want to be able to get your minimum and your maximum amperage with one finger stroke. So I turned the machine up all the way to 200 here, and that's going to let me start at a lower amperage and get all the amperage I need to run these beads with just about maybe a ½ inch or 3/4 of an inch of stroke. And I'll still have plenty of control on the bead, and it'll get me used to running that finger control. After about 4 or 5 beads, that finger control started feeling a lot more natural to me. And after I finished the job, it felt really natural to me. And it's kind of like welding with your left hand. You know, it just feels weird when you haven't done it in a while. So if you got a finger control that you want to get used to, pad some beads. If you just got a MIG machine and you're struggling to have uniform beads, padding beads is the way to go. You can go as thin as 11 gauge. Just turn the machine down a little bit. This is the time to really pay attention to your stick out, get used to your machine by adjusting your settings, seeing what works. If your machine has inductance, play around with that a little bit and see what that does. Do some pushing, do some pulling, experiment with a longer stick out and a shorter stick out. This is the time to learn. This is the time to experiment with things. This is especially a good time to experiment with the wire feed speed, turning it down a little bit and slowing things down until you establish some uniformity. You can always pick up your speed later, but turning things down slows things down a little bit. I've got the wire feed speed set a good bit lower than the recommended settings here, but I'm just welding a bead on a plate, so it doesn't take as much heat as it would for a fillet weld like a T-joint or something like that. And it does slow things down and just kind of lets me think about things a minute. It's a really good learning tool. And I can run bead after bead after bead. I just need to let it cool every now and then. I get a lot of practice with a very little bit of metal. You can do the same thing with self-shielded flux core. Now, one important thing you need to note about self-shielded flux core is you need DCEN. You need to swap the polarity and make sure you're on electrode negative. You also need to use the proper stick out length. And for this 035 wire, that's only about a 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch. You don't want to use a big 1.5 inch stick out. It will weld, it just won't weld very uniformly if you're using a way long of a stick out. Again, you can use as thin as 11 gauge. Just set the machine accordingly, and it doesn't take much metal. Very little prep time. Just let it cool down every now and then. It's such great practice. Let's take a look at some 60-10 padding in the horizontal position here. The 60-10 is a cellulosic rod. It is a fast freeze rod, and generally speaking, oftentimes you want to do just a little bit of a whip and pause type motion to kind of keep the puddle cooled off and give yourself some uniform and distinct ripples. There are times when you can just, almost do circles, or just, there are also times when you could just drag this rod. But it's used a lot. The 60-10 is used a lot for open root, but then after that open root, sometimes you're putting a hot pass in with it, and it pays dividends to be able to stack beads uniformly with a 60-10. And the best way to do that is padding beads. Of course, it also pays to do this in the vertical uphill position. All right, let's talk now about padding beads on aluminum. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know I'm a big advocate of padding beads on aluminum, even if you're trying to get better at carbon steel or stainless steel. In my years of teaching welders, I just found that having welders pad beads on aluminum, even if they weren't trying to learn aluminum, helped them get better quicker at carbon steel and stainless steel. It just gets your filler rod hand up to speed way quicker than if you just stuck with carbon steel beads. It requires very little material and very little prep time. It's a very efficient exercise. Now, you do want to pad beads on carbon steel too, but when you do that, about every third bead or so, you're going to need to cool things off, wire brush things, or things can get squirrely. They get too oxidized, too hot, and the bead just acts funny. But it's great practice. You also want to add a little non-dominant hand practice in there. So if you're right-handed, practice with your left hand and vice versa. It feels really funny to start with, but super necessary, pays big dividends later. I think there's huge benefits into practicing with your non-dominant hand. Ultimately, you're going to have to use that hand occasionally. I'm very guilty myself of relying on my right hand, and then sometimes when I have to use my left hand, I'm rusty. So this is a good chance to practice using your left hand or your non-dominant hand. And padding beads is something you're going to throw this thing in the trash can in the scrap while you're done. So it's just a great opportunity to sharpen your skills with your non-dominant hand. I switched over to a clear Jazzy tin cup here, and I think you can see kind of how it just kind of lights things up for you. If you're having trouble seeing the puddle and you got a brand new clear lens in and you got a good welding helmet, you might want to think about trying a clear cup like a 8 Pro clear or even this Jazzy 10 clear. It really does light things up kind of like a light bulb. Helps you see the path just a little bit better. I'm in my mid-60s and I need all the help I can get. Just a quick reminder, when you're padding beads on carbon steel like this, you need to start off with clean, bright material where you removed all the mill scale, and then every 3 or 4 beads, you need to stop and let it cool, or you can force cool it. You can put it in a bucket of water, won't hurt anything. Don't weld over it while it's still wet. You want to keep it warm where that water evaporates really quickly. But if you let it get too hot, things get too oxidized, the puddle starts getting squirrely and wandering around. It's just not as good a practice as if you keep it clean and cool. So about every 2 to 3 beads, you can give her a dunk in the water, give it a good wire brushing with a power brush or a hand brush, and you'll be good to go. It's such good practice though. Now I'll show a little bit later how this is not just a practice thing. This is a very real world application where you might have to build up a part that's going to be machined off, or just stacking beads on a multi-pass weld. It's the same skill, except for you're not using much material and you're not wasting your time having to prep material and grind and tack joints together and things like that. It's just a very efficient exercise. In years of teaching classes on TIG welding, something that I incorporated that I found extremely helpful, that really shortened the learning curve for a lot of TIG welders, a lot of students, is to alternate between steel and aluminum. So run 2 or 3 beads, padding beads on steel, and then switch over to aluminum and change your polarity, change your settings, maybe change your electrode to a more blunt tip. But this really keeps you on your toes. This keeps things from getting boring. It keeps you really, really watching the puddle and reading a different looking puddle and a different sounding puddle. And I have found that it just really speeds up the learning curve when somebody is trying to learn how to TIG weld. Maybe it doesn't make sense. All I know is it worked. Now here's a mock-up of a very real type repair that I used to do a lot when I was doing job shop type work. You might get a shaft like this. In this case, this is 4140, so it needs a preheat. But, you know, that maybe there's a galled area where a bearing was or something, and the repair is to just pad beads and build it up so that the machinist can turn it back down to original dimension, make it within tolerance again. So you start off by a preheat, and you start off by, you know, going nice and slow, feeding rods where you're, depending on how much buildup you need. You generally don't want to just dab the minimum because this is a build-up operation. So you want to know how much it needs, how much the machinist needs to put on there. So you want to kind of probably get some calipers and get a dimension and get an idea on how much weld you need. But this is a very typical repair, and I've done it a bunch of times for machinists on building up shafts, on worn areas on shafts. And this, like I said, this happens to be 4140 material, so I'm using a 500 preheat, and I'm trying to keep it above 500 all while I'm welding it. And one thing that's going to happen here on a job like this is that the first bead is going to go in really clean, but then as this thing gets just slightly oxidized, the bead starts kind of just wandering a little bit. It gets swimming around a little bit. Not a huge deal at all, but you just got to stay the course. And again, you're just trying to stack one bead almost exactly halfway over the previous bead so that you don't have any low places that won't clean up when he puts it on the lathe. And if the beads start swimming around and wandering with you, one thing you can do to cure that is use the pulse setting on your machine and a high pulse rate, something around 100 to 150 pulses a second. When you use pulse like that, you have to increase your amperage. But in this case, I used 100 pulses a second, 30% background, and 50% pulse duty. And this is the bead that yielded. It's got a little flicker here, but that's camera effect. That's not what I'm seeing under the helmet. It's just the shutter speed of the camera or something like that. But you can see how the bead now is kind of sticking where I put it more. So it can really choke the arc down, focus the arc, and really kind of helps on a build-up job like this. It's just one more tool in the tool belt. High-speed pulse for really focusing the arc on when a bead's wanting to wander and swim around with you. Especially helpful for welding on an edge or near an edge. At 100 pulses a second, this is not really hard on the eyes or anything. You're seeing a lot of flickering here, but you won't see that under the helmet, and it really does help to kind of focus that bead, put it right where you need it. Hey, thanks for your support. ShopWeldMonger.com for TIG fingers, tungsten, filler metal, TIG welding machines, and lots of other high-quality welding gear. WeldMonger.com. We'll see you next time.